Hello and welcome back to another KCC video. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today, we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Zenith Blade 115, Giant Golden Archway. Let's jump right in. Back in 2010, I got a job working for a company that has an unofficial food item where you put $1 menu sandwich into another. I worked there for a year and a half. During that time, I learned everything. I could open, close, work the grill very well, and work the front counter and drive-thru as well, if not better, than most that worked there on a consistent basis. I'd been promised a review when I was hired that was to take place after 6 months of being there. Being the kind of employee that wants to move up in the company, I never pushed the issue, but instead kept pushing to learn everything I could so that when I did get my review, I would get a good one. In my time there, I called off once because I was recovering from emergency surgery to get rid of a pilonidal cyst that had ruptured. On the same token, I was always the first to volunteer to pick up a shift if it didn't interfere with my college classes. After being there a year and a half, they announced everyone would be getting a review. My general manager came to me and told me the time she wanted to schedule me for my raise. I told her at that time that I would be needing a quarter raise, $10 a week, in order to make it so I could sustain working there while going to college, and she said she understood. When my review came, I was floored. Despite all of the work I had put in and the energy I poured into my job, hoping to reach management while going to college, she assessed me as a meets expectations employee. I don't mean to sound cocky, but I know my own value as an employee. I knew I more than exceeded expectations of an employee of that company, and I said as much. She tried to claim it was based on the consensus of the other managers, but I knew myself to be a favorite employee of every manager but her. She then told me she would be giving me a 15-cent raise. I told her I had requested a quarter, and she said that 15 cents was the best she could do. The wheels turned in my head. I knew I was undervalued by her, and I would never have a chance to move up, so I told her I would be putting in my 2 weeks' notice. She looked at me as if I had slapped her and said, "You're leaving over 10 cents?" I looked her right in the eyes as I said, "No, you're losing a fully cross-trained employee that loves her job over 10 cents. I then stood up and walked out to my car. I did write out a 2 weeks notice and immediately began looking for a job. During my search when she worked with me, she'd frequently tell me how someone of my experience couldn't hope to get a job making the $8 I'd requested of them. Well, I did, and then some. I applied to a gas station that was obsessed with the letter Z on the East Coast and was to work in their kitchen overnight. I'd be making $12 an hour if I got the job. I called literally every day until I got an interview. I had my interview the night of my last call and was given the job on the spot. With 5 days left on my notice, I informed her that I had gotten the job, where I'd gotten it, and how much I'd be making. If looks could kill, I'd have never been able to start at my other job because of the dirt I'd be buried under. To get back at me, she wanted the one thing I treasured most. As an employee working for that company, they'd give you pins you could put on your hat to show your accomplishments. In a year and a half, I'd earned over 30 pins. I was proud of them and considered them a collection. She told me that after my last shift, I'd have to return my uniforms and all of my pins. I claimed the pins were mine as payment for things I had done, but she told me she would make sure I'd be docked the cost of the pins out of my last paycheck if I didn't return them. She did it. Despite everything I'd worked for to turn this in my favor, she got under my skin. So I decided to get her back. Not wanting to completely burn a bridge, I came up with an idea I can confidently say was my own, but had been done before on some shows I'd never seen at the time. I decided to suspend them in Jell-O. The night before my last shift, I cooked up a large bowl of Jell-O. Before putting it in the fridge, I tied strings around my pins and suspended them at various points throughout the bowl by taping the string ends to the outside of the bowl. I let it cool overnight. After I finished my last shift, I told my manager I was running home to get my uniforms and pins. I returned a half an hour later with my Jell-O overturned onto a plate. "I'll always miss you" plate. Then I put the uniforms on the floor next to her desk and, looking her dead in the eye, placed the Jell-O on her desk and said, "Here's your pins." I walked out without waiting for her response and decided never to go there again. My roommate, who also worked there, told me that it was all her coworkers could talk about all day. I was at least able to take some satisfaction in the fact that maybe I would inspire some other shenanigans from my coworkers if they, too, decided that the company was not for them. As a reminder, people don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad managers. Now, OP, it's all fine and dandy telling your manager that you were going to make much better money at the new job, but what I would have done was told all of your coworkers what place was paying a whole lot better. You've got a whole bunch of people working minimum wage at a golden arch, maybe they'd all want to move on to a better paying job too. You could really screw the manager over that way. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from ULFR. Oh, I'll just hold on to it. Leave it, it's fine. Let's jump right in. Hi all, back again with a dog park story featuring a nice heartwarming dose of malicious compliance. Not sure how many folks have dogs, specifically male dogs, but for anyone who doesn't, pro tip, anything upright and stationary can and will be peed on. Fire hydrants, of course. Signs, absolutely. Plants, you bet. Innocent bystanders who haven't moved recently, oops, I swear that's only happened twice. One fine day, about 2 years or so ago, my pupper and I were at the dog park doing dog park things. I throw the ball, he chases it down. Sometimes he'll bring it back, sometimes he'll leave it at random places, sometimes he'll bring it to a random stranger in the park and look at them like they're soft until they figure out he wants them to throw the ball. The entire time this is happening, the whole park is getting all the P-mails replied to, one spritz at a time. This particular time, we had the entire dog park to ourselves for a little while, and these two ladies come in with super cute beagle puppies. One woman sensibly didn't bring a bag with her into the park, she had pockets, and the other lady had a very big bag, purse, thing I'm required to hold at arm's length with 2 fingers at the mall while she's hands-on shopping to preserve masculinity, and looked like it cost about as much as a used car. This was the kind where she'll get scoliosis from carting the thing around, but it's large enough to fit an actual kitchen appliance. So these two ladies are standing there talking to each other and monitoring their puppies, which is good. I've more or less dissolved into a puddle of awe, and my dog makes friends because at that time in his life, he'd still play with other dogs. Then I noticed the woman with the bag has put her bag on the ground, which is a thing you do when you've probably got a car battery crammed in there with all the other stuff ladies need to carry when they're not permitted pockets by the cruel gods of fashion. I notice this and figure she's new. Once I've recollected myself from puddle form, I wait for an opportune moment and toss out an, "Excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but I just wanted to let you know that having your bag on the ground is a bad idea at the dog park. I've seen others hang it on the chain link fence," and I pointed at the fence that encloses the dog park. Not like there weren't over 9,000 available hangers for her bag. They both look at me in mild shock. Apparently, they hadn't noticed me gushing all over their cute puppies. Then, they cotton on to what I'm saying, and the sensible lady looks at her friend and rolls her eyes, while the bag lady comes back with, "Oh, I'll just hold on to it," and picks up Bagzilla and slings it back over her shoulder. I shrug and buzz off, which was not a stated request but was implied. Within 5 minutes, the doom bag is back on the ground and I meander over because I see my dog go into target lock mode. The stream is imminent. I attempt to give the woman a heads up and make it as far as, bag lady looks at me and just snaps, "Leave it, it'll be fine." I give her a shrug and mosey over to somewhere clear of the blast radius. Not only does my dog have target lock, he's also parked himself uphill from the bag's impact crater. His leg lifts, and it's no spritz going into, not onto the bag, it's a full stream. Realizing the most likely reaction from bag lady is a designer boot to somewhere, I shout, "Dexter, no!" at max volume, and get the desired result. He looks at me and then doesn't escape and evade because he's a butthole like that sometimes. Both women look at me, then at the dog, and then at the bag. Sensible lady is fighting back tears, while bag lady works herself up into a frenzy. How dare my filthy animal urinate on her valuable crap? Don't I have him trained? Blah blah blah. She scuffs her puppy and holds him in her arms while maintaining a constant stream of castigation at me. It was honestly kind of impressive. Keeps shouting at me all the way over to her car, throws the puppy in, I hope he's okay, and burns rubber leaving the park. The other lady bursts out laughing once the car is out of line of sight and wheezes, "At least you tried." A couple of observations from this story. Number one, obviously the second woman wasn't the biggest fan of the first woman, considering she laughed as soon as she was out of eyesight. Second observation, oh my gosh, the word "female." I friggin' love it. Now whenever I see a dog running around and peeing on something, I'm gonna think to myself of this story and go, that dog's just checking his females. Our next story today comes to us from Emu External 6244. Driving down an icy hill. Let's jump right in. I was a service tech who did scheduled calls to customers' homes. We generally had anywhere from 8 to 12 jobs a day as we were swamped. As one of the lead techs, I was also assigned jobs that most of the other techs had no training to fix. On this particular day, it began snowing and icing and the road conditions began worsening. No issue normally, as long as I could avoid a few streets in town that have steep hills. I have a job in a newer area, and when I get to the neighborhood, I notice the house is at the bottom of a pretty steep hill on a dead-end street. I park at the top and message my supervisor and tell him I would recommend we reschedule the job as my truck would never make it back up the hill. He must have been having a bad day, but he goes off on me and demands I just do the job. The road conditions were not that bad. I took a photo of the hill and sent it, but he still demanded I do the job. I would also note that my truck is vital to the work, and I could not have walked to the home due to the equipment in the truck that is required. Cue malicious compliance. I saved the message and sent it to my personal account. Getting to the customer home was no issue, and I had them up and running in under 30 minutes. I followed my supervisor demands and did the job. Leaving was another issue. I could not get to the top of the hill with the truck. I quickly gave up once I determined it was hopeless. I'm stuck at the bottom of a hill and unable to get my truck up it. My other scheduled jobs will have to be reassigned, and a tow truck called to get me out. Try harder. It's not hard to drive on icy conditions. At this point, I feel it unsafe to do so from this point on, as I feel I could damage the homeowner's property. See prior messages about the hill being too steep and my request to reschedule it being denied. At this point, the supervisor calls me and I confirm I will not attempt to further climb the hill. He grumbles, but he knows me enough not to push me, so tells me to hang on. I wait 45 minutes and he shows up in his work truck, much smaller and lighter than mine. He does not even attempt to go down the hill but walks. He tries for a while to get my truck up himself, but then accidentally hits a mailbox. He gives up and calls a tow truck. With wintry conditions, I wait another 3 hours for a truck to arrive. When they do arrive, they also get stuck at the bottom of the hill. Not sure why they even tried going down it. Now, me and a tow truck are stuck at the bottom of a hill, and this time the wait is even longer. They needed to bring in a specialty truck, which it turns out does not have a long enough chain to reach us at the bottom of the hill. We wait even longer for a third tow truck to arrive. Overall, I arrived at the customer's home around 9:30 a.m. and finished about 10 o'clock a.m. I did not get up the hill until 7 p.m. 9 hours I was at the bottom of the hill with my truck running while I played online on my laptop. Instead of working in the wintry conditions outside, I was toasty in the cab. See, you could almost consider this a small vacation if you're an hourly worker because you'd just be sitting there collecting your paycheck while enjoying your time online with your laptop in your truck. However, if you were paid by the job, this would absolutely suck. Now, OP seems really happy about this situation, so I'm going to assume they're hourly and definitely not paid by the job. Our next story today comes to us from Untimely Manners. Fine, you can come collect it tomorrow. Let's jump right in. Years ago, I crashed my motorbike, my fault, and I did bend a fork and some cosmetic damage like broken mirror, broken kickstand. I had always dealt with the same motorbike store for parts and they were always really good to me, so I assumed they would help with repairing my bike. I took it in and originally told no time frame for repairs. I agree, since they do not know what damage there is yet. Originally, I get a call that both forks were bent and so on and told $800. 2 months later, I ring saying, hey, what's going on? Was told the forks never arrived. They will have to reorder. A month goes by, I ring back and told still waiting on the order. Another month, was told they haven't had time to pull the bike apart to check out the damage, price is now $1,500. Another month, the forks only just arrived and they will order the rest of the parts. I will skip ahead here. Basically, this had stretched to 7 months and was now up to $2,000. I rang back saying this has gone on for too long, you're taking the piss, I'm coming tomorrow to take my bike back and you better have it ready. Walk to the store and I can't find my bike. The mechanic could not even recall working on it. Was told it may be on display in the store. I walk in, my bike is on display and had been for the past week. I go to the counter to say that's my bike, I want it. They can't find the receipt. I say, yeah, you might want to look further. You kept it for 7 months. They eventually find it and say, did you get a new battery? I said, yes. The guy I had been dealing with had not been keeping up his tally, and I was only being charged for a new battery. The counter staff asked, why did we have the bike for so long? I said, no idea, you just kept it. They tried to ring the owner I was dealing with, however his phone was off as he was at the dentist. I said, I want my bike now, so I paid for the battery and rode off. The owner tried calling me for weeks afterwards. I kept hanging up. Now, OP mentioned in a comment down below that the bike was repaired and had a bunch of new parts on it. They're just not sure how long it had been repaired for, and they think it was just sitting there because the owner wanted to claim it as abandoned for being in the shop for so long and sell it to make better money. I'm seeing in the comment section down below this one that apparently it's common for bikes to sit in the shop for months at a time. Makes me definitely not want to get a bike. But then again, my car sat in a shop for 3 weeks for a brake caliper. So, well, yeah, moving on. Our last story today comes to us from Good Time Charlie. Roger that, let's jump right in. In 2007, I joined the Navy. I was 26. 2008, we went on deployment and I was a lowly E3. So most of the guys I worked with were like 18 and pretty timid yes men. Had a first class E6 who was just trying to ride out his time till retirement. Our chief stayed on his butt, and when he got his butt chewed, it rolled downhill. We spent most of that deployment doing ignorant crap like painting in the rain, mopping in the rain, painting spaces just to have to paint them again in a month. Me and another guy were supposed to paint a fan room for an upcoming inspection. It didn't really need to be painted, but for some reason in the military, it's a high crime for someone to have any downtime whatsoever. First class brought us over to the space that we were supposed to paint, and he opened the door and said, I want this whole effing room painted white. Do you understand? Sure thing, petty officer. We will take care of it. He left to go sit in his chair for the day. A fan room is not entirely white, just the walls and the ceiling. The floor is a dark gray, and there are different colored pipes and stenciling on the pipes and directional arrows. That's not what he said though. He said effing white. So me and my buddy opened a 5-gallon can of white paint, and every single square inch of that fan room was painted white. Floor, walls, piping, ceiling, machinery, everything. About 8 p.m. we went to the office and let him know we were done and awaiting his approval. We were standing by. He and another first class walk up, and we knew it was coming. We also knew that he was going to have to explain it too. He opened the door, and it was so bright he could have gotten a retinal burn. He closed the door and paused, opened the door again, looked around, and closed the door. He asked if we knew the floor was supposed to be gray and the piping stenciled. Yes, petty officer. That's not what I told you to do though, was it? No, petty officer, it wasn't. They looked at each other and knew they effed up. They were not even mad. He just said, let's let this paint dry and in a few days we will fix the floor and piping. We ended up not even having to do it as he tasked someone else with the job. After that, I didn't get forced into doing stupid bullcrap anymore. I think the best part of this story is the petty officer realizing that they brought this on themselves. Opening the door a second time just to make sure their eyes weren't deceiving them was also a really epic moment. Check out all 5 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.